Hi, Davey Cretin here for Cretin Classics. And I hate to do this, but unfortunately, we lost another great rock and roller. Jack Russell from Great White, born John Patrick Russell, December 5th, 1960 to August 15th, 2024. He was only 63 when he passed away, which is far too young and very sad. Not much older than me. Makes you think, unfortunately. He Jack Russell co founded Great White with the underrated guitarist Mark Kendall in 1981. Originally, they were going to be called Dante Fox, but their manager, Alan Niven, who later went on to manage Guns N' Roses, and Mark Kendall decided to go with the name Great White because that was Mark Kendall's nickname. So they used the name Great White. They always had a shark theme throughout their career. That was sort of their mascot. This was in 1981. A couple of years before, in 1979, unfortunately, while he was high on PCP, Jack Russell decided to rob a drug dealer's house. He fired a shot into the house, accidentally, inadvertently hit the housekeeper and injured her. Luckily, she lived. Police caught him. He was busted. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Somehow, he got out after 11 months. So in 1980, he decided to set his life straight, and that's when he met eventually Mark Kendall at a show, and they formed Great White. In 1983, they released their first independent EP. It sold so well that it led to a deal with EMI Capitol Records, EMI America. Of course, the name changes over the years. 1984 saw the release of their first full-length self-titled debut album. Then in 1987, that's on their third album, that's when they had their real big breakthrough. The album was titled Once Bitten, and they had the epic 7-minute, the full-length, boy do I love that full-length version of the song, Rock Me was their first real big hit. Also from the album, the ballad Save Your Love was the other big hit, and they've gone on to become perennial Great White favorites. Around this time, maybe a year or so later, the band performed on MTV Unplugged, and everyone was floored that they covered Led Zeppelin's Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, because who covers a Led Zeppelin song? It's almost, sacred. You don't touch the Beatles, you don't touch Led Zeppelin, but they did an amazing version unplugged of Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, and people were amazed by Jack Russell's vocal. The guy was a great singer. He had a golden voice. I mean, he could sing the very hard rock, heavy rock of their earlier career. He was great on ballads, the blues stuff, because they were sort of, Great White were an amalgamation. They started out as a very hard rock band, maybe even heavy metal, you might say, because Kendall played some really heavy riffs on the first two records. And then they sort of transformed into what they call hair metal, blues rock. But there's no doubt that Jack Russell's voice, the songs, and Kendall's guitar playing made the band. I mean, the band had other great players. And they did really well because Once Bitten went platinum. So it sold 1 million copies in 1987, 1988. They did the MTV Unplugged. Then their fourth album, their fourth studio record, Twice Shy, went double platinum. And this is like the apex of their commercial career, Great White. And on the album Twice Shy, they had a bunch of hit songs. The Angel Song, another good ballad. House of Broken Love, very blues rock, excellent song. And of course their cover of Ian Hunter's perennial favorite, Once Bitten, Twice Shy, that he did back in the day. I think it was with his band Mott the Hoople, if memory serves. Could have been on his solo album, could have been on both. So that's probably their most well-known song, Great White, is Once Bitten, Twice Shy. Big video on MTV. These guys were constantly on MTV at the time. I had MTV, and I remember them being a big band. On a personal note, in 1991 on the Hook Tour, I got to see the band. It was a triple bill, 3 bands, at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island, New York. It was Trickster opening, Great White was in the middle, and Scorpions headlined. And I remember that they performed great. Jack Russell sounded excellent. Guy had a great voice. Shame what happened to him. They did a really good version of Mr. Bone at the show and Save Your Love. And Scorpions were in fine form as well. I'd seen them years before. But getting back to Great White and Jack Russell, unfortunately in 2003, they were touring under the name, he was touring under the name Jack Russell's Great White. And in February, I think it was February 20th of that year, yes, they played a venue in Rhode Island called the Station Nightclub. Their manager set off pyro, there was a fire, and 100 people died. And I guess the band and Jack Russell were just never the same after that, because he was the name, everyone knew him, the front man of the band. Sort of in the media, he got blamed, even though technically it was the manager's fault for setting off the pyro. It was the station nightclub owner's fault. And these were the guys, the band manager and the owners of the nightclub, that got arrested and indicted and did some jail time. It's a very unfortunate incident, having 100 people die, a few hundred people injured, and the burden that must put on one's psyche is just impossible to imagine. Jack Russell, because of all, being a front man, running around, jumping around, he eventually had a lot of physical ailments. He became addicted to pills and alcohol, and only after his friend Jani Lane from Warrant passed away did he decide to get clean. He was in the band, he was out of the band, he made some solo records. Jack Russell's Great White released a few albums, I think 3 albums, including another Led Zeppelin covers album. And all in all, Jack Russell with Great White did 11 studio records together. So there's well over 100 songs for us to listen to and remember and hear his great voice on. I also want to say that in January of this year, 2024, Jack Russell and Tracy Guns, the lead guitar player from LA Guns, released a collaboration album under the name Medusa. So there's another record everyone might want to check out. Sadly, on July 17th, actually, of this year, last month, 2024, Jack Russell announced his retirement from touring because of Lewy body dementia. And then less than a month later, on August 15th, he lost his life to complications from Lewy body dementia and also muscular system atrophy. Now, as someone who just lost someone recently to a form of dementia, very hard disease. It's very difficult on the person, the family members, the loved ones. It's just a struggle, and it's a shame that people have to suffer from dementia, Alzheimer's. It's a really, really tough thing to go through. Pardon me. So my condolences to Jack Russell's family, his friends, all the musicians he worked with that knew him and loved him, and his fans all around the world. Because even though Great White hit their commercial peak 30-something years ago, I mean, their music still lives on, and it's loved by millions of people. I mean, they sold platinum, they sold double platinum. This isn't a band who had 1 gold record and went away. They were more than that. And Jack Russell should be remembered through his music. So I want to say rest in peace, Jack Russell, and everyone will miss you, and I hope you're at peace. And that's about it. This is Davey Cretin for Cretin Classics. And I hate doing these videos, but I felt I should because I was a fan of his music. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.